What type of negotiation over professional consulting services is acceptable? You're in a situation where you have a project and you need to hire a professional, could be an engineer, an architect, a land surveyor, a geologist, whatever it is, a professional, and you're going to sit down and negotiate with them over their services. What's acceptable? There's some things that are acceptable. There's some things that aren't. And I tell people hiring a professional consultant is not like walking into your local grocery store and buying a box of cereal. You go into your grocery store, you walk down the cereal aisle. There's all kinds of cereal to choose from. The price is printed right there on the shelf. You know how much cereal comes in each box. You probably know what it tastes like, right? It's a fairly simple decision. I'm sure there's some people that get anxiety about choosing their box of breakfast cereal, but for most of us, that's pretty easy. There's lots of options. Okay, that is not what it is like to hire a professional consultant. So that's not what it's like to hire a land surveyor. You usually don't have that many choices, right? So there's going to be a handful of folks that are able to do the type of work that you want in the location that you want it. You don't know exactly what you're going to get, and you might not be sure what it costs. So it's a very different buying experience. So one of the other things that makes this process of hiring a consultant very different from something like buying a box of cereal is the agreement to provide professional services is typically negotiable. It should be negotiable. So the price is negotiable, and what comes in the bundle of services is negotiable. And so one of the things that we work really hard at here at Redefined Horizons, my team, is during the early phases of engagement with the client, even before we're under contract, is just asking the right questions, understanding what they need, and making sure that we provide them with the right bundle of services at a fair price. And one of the things that makes us different and that wins us repeat business is we work really hard not to sell a client something that they don't need. And not all professional consultants do that. So it is important to negotiate with your professional consultant to understand what you need and what you're buying and to communicate with them before you're even under contract. However, there are some things in the agreement for professional services that are what I call non-negotiable. So there's some things that it's okay to ask for, and there's some things that it's not okay to ask for. And so I want to talk about the types of things that you can negotiate and the types of things that you should not negotiate. You shouldn't ask for. So let's start with the list of things that can be negotiated. So number one, you can negotiate schedule and turnaround time. So one of the reasons we get hired frequently is because we are way faster than most other surveyors. And so that's something that's a value that we provide, and we're willing to negotiate turnaround time. One of the things that surprises people sometimes is my price to deliver a survey in 6 months isn't the same price as delivering a survey in 6 days. So I charge a different amount for those two things. But that is negotiable. Schedule and turnaround time is negotiable. The type of deliverable you get is negotiable. Do you want a PDF map? Do you want CAD drawings for your architect? Do you want a technical report? So we can negotiate over the types of deliverables. Sometimes I'm asked to carry extra insurance. So insurance requirements are negotiable. I don't have a problem doing that typically. I will charge that. I will charge for that, but I will carry extra insurance if the client asks. So insurance requirements or coverage is negotiable. The task that you need me to perform, that's negotiable to an extent, right? So that's part of why we ask you questions and craft what we call scope of services. That describes what we're going to do. So there may be things you need. There may be some things you don't need. Different clients need different things. We can negotiate that. We will also negotiate payment terms to some extent. So the amount of the deposit, how much time you have to pay the bill, if there's going to be late fees, what type of payment we'll accept, all of those things are negotiable. We're fairly flexible on that, and we will have those conversations with a potential client. And the price is negotiable. Some people watch my videos and think that I would never negotiate over price. That's not true. I do occasionally negotiate over price. So the amount of the price, whether it's going to be billed on lump sum or time and materials, if there's contingency payments or penalties or bonuses, all of that stuff is negotiable, and I'm willing to have those conversations with a potential client. Most consultants are. So all those things are negotiable, and you should talk about all those things before you hire a professional consultant like a land surveyor. But there are some things that are not negotiable. And if you ask me to do some of these things when we're negotiating our agreement, I'm going to tell you no. And you might offend me, possibly. I try not to get offended, but there's just, this is some, these things are common sense, I think you'll see. So here's what's not negotiable, okay? I've got 5 things. Number 1, following the law. You can't ask me to break the law. I'm not going to do that. And a good consultant won't. It blows my mind how frequently people will ask me to break the law in my contract negotiation. And the worst ones are lawyers. You would think lawyers, as officers of the court, would know better, but there's been several times in the last 3 years when I've had a lawyer ask me to not follow the law when negotiating my contract. I'm not going to do that. So that's non-negotiable. Don't ask me. That's probably my number 1 pet peeve. If you ask me to break the law while we're negotiating an agreement for professional services, I'm going to get irritated. I probably won't work for you. The second thing is you can't ask me for less than I know it takes to do the job right. So I won't do what I call bare bones scope of services. That's not going to help you. It's not going to help me. It's a good chance we'll end up in a dispute or a lawsuit. I have to do the minimum that I know as a professional consultant it's going to take to do the job properly, whether you want to pay for it or not. And to do anything less than that would be negligent and probably illegal. And I'm not going to do that. So when I tell you I can't cut any more out of this scope of services, that's what it means. I can't cut any more. The third thing is you can't ask me to be unethical, right? Don't ask me to lie. Don't ask me to cheat. Don't ask me to move property corner monuments. Don't ask me to lie to your neighbor. Don't ask me to lie on a map or a report. I've been asked to do those things before. I've seen other surveyors do it. I'm not going to do it. Okay, so that's non-negotiable. So I will negotiate on price, but don't ask me to cut my fee by half or cut it to a third. I'm not going to do that. If you got somebody that will do that's offering to do the same thing as me for half or a third of my price, I think you should be really careful. I think that person's probably about to cheat you. Their price is negotiable. I will negotiate 10% or 20%, maybe even 30%, depending on what we're doing. So there is some room to negotiate there, depending on how busy I am and the risks that are involved and some other things. But don't ask me for a 50% or 75% discount. That isn't going to happen. And it probably will offend me. Don't ask me to take risks that I can't insure or manage. This happens a lot. So it doesn't do me any good to take a risk that I can't insure, because you're not going to get any money out of me if something goes sideways. So it's in our interest, both of us, you as the client, me as the consultant, for me to only take risks that are insurable, right? Because I don't have a lot of money. If there's something goes wrong, you want to be able to get money from my insurance company. And same thing, I'm not going to take risks that I don't have any control over, right? So there are risks that I have control over, but there's some risks that I don't have control over, and I'm not going to take those risks. So remember, hiring a professional consultant like a land surveyor or an architect or an engineer or a geologist or an arborist, all those. It's not like buying a box of cereal. You can't go to Rayleigh's and pick that stuff off the shelf, right? You're not buying a commodity. A good professional will work to create what I call a win-win agreement with you as the client. And there should always be aspects of the agreement that are negotiable, but there's always going to be aspects of the agreement that are not negotiable. And so you need to understand that. And so you're going to know if you're hiring a good professional consultant, because they're going to explain this to you, and they're going to work to tailor an agreement that meets your needs, that is also fair to them, right? It's what I call a win-win. So if you have a professional consultant that's not willing to do that, or that will do things that are illegal or unethical, you probably need to rethink. You need to rethink who you're hiring.